Happy 2025, and hello and welcome to another episode of the Spiraken Manga Review. I'm your host, Zan, saying konnichiwa, aloha, buongiorno, and what's up? I know, some of you thought I was dead. I am not. I am back from the grave. I am revitalized. I am excited to talk about the thing which I love, which is manga. But if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Spiraken, or some podcasts and reviews about connecting dance narratives, is a nerdy podcast where every episode I talk about various nerdy topics and I tell you the pros and cons about it. You don't have to agree with anything I am the co-hosts I have say, but we try to be educational, enlightening, exciting, and most importantly, important. Now you can check any of our earlier episodes at www.spiraken.com. We're also on Bluesky, Instagram, and more importantly, YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, remember to like, share, subscribe, and share with your friends, and click on that bell for notification when we release new episodes. I know it's been a while, but I am back and I'm excited. More importantly than that, if you're joining us from Instagram, we're currently at 300 followers. Let's see if we can get to 500 this year. And before I review, let's actually get with the elephant in the room, which is where have I been for the last few weeks? Well, long story short, our editing laptop, which I use to edit the podcast and also to do my panels at various conventions, which I've had for a while, the motherboard died. And it's kind of an expensive process because it's a very expensive laptop. So things have been kind of going on, been trying to take care of things, stopgap the situation, but it has come to the point where financially it is very difficult to do that. So what I'm doing is, don't worry, I'm not giving up the podcast. We're still doing this. I still love doing this. I'm going to keep doing this till I'm an old man who has to read manga with thick glasses and a magnifying glass. But in order to fix this, I'm going to have to ask for some help. And I've been doing this since 2008. I really don't usually ask for help, but we do have a Patreon. But more important than that, we are starting a GoFundMe where you can donate to the podcast and help us fix our laptop. We're not asking for a lot, but we're going to get over that in a different video. Just wanted to give you a heads up of what's going on and why I've been away for a while. But I am back, and I'm excited to talk about an awesome, unique historical manga, which does something very different. Because it's been a while, some of you may not remember what happened the last time I spun that one, not only the Wheel of Manga. But first, let's get to the review, shall I? Because if you remember the last episode, I spun the Wheel of Manga to dictate on the reviewing a manga that was created by the creator of Days. We're talking about Tsuyoshi Yasuda, and the manga that we're talking about is the Blue Wolves of Mibu. And this tells the story of the Shinsengumi, who at this time, when the manga is taking place, are known as the Mibu Roshingumi, which are a group of elite samurai made of the lower class, who their job is to support the political members of the shogunate in Kyoto during 1863, when things are kind of going bad. This is right before the revolution occurs, where you have the Meiji Restoration. So a lot of things are moving into parts. Some of you may have heard about these individuals from various series like Vagabond or Rurouni Kenshin. But this one focuses on a unique story and situation. More importantly than that, the manga also gives you a huge blurb about the actual Shinsengumi, about their history, what happened to them, and all the various characters that we talk about, like Kondo Isami, Hijikata Toshizo, Okita Shoji, and my personal favorite, we're talking about Hajime Saito. But this is not about them, because it actually opens up uniquely in the future, where we have a very old Shinpachi talking to a bunch of kids who are talking to him, and they want to know about the stories of the Mibu. And he's going back in time because, for those of you who are unaware, this is Nakakura Shinpachi, who is the narrator of the story. He's a member of the Shinsengumi, who is known for a lot. I'm not going to get into all the Shinsengumi stuff because there is so much about there. I mean, one of my personal favorites is the Cat History, where they have a whole episode dedicated to the Shinsengumi and gets into some of the unique elements of these crazy people. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about this story. And they end up asking him to tell them the story of what he remembers. And he wants to talk about the beginning when he met someone who had a fervent desire for justice and who inspired him, a young boy with blue hair. And it goes back to the past, to 1863, where we have a young Hojikata Toshizo and Okita Soji entering into Kyoto. And at this time, the Shinsengumi or the Mibu Roshigumi, are a group of just low-level samurai who've showed up in Kyoto, not to cause problems, but they're essentially helping out the situation because everything is going crazy. There's a lot of political uprising, upheaval. It's a powder keg about to explode. And they're there to support people. But most people think that these are just weird samurai who've shown up. They're going to ask for money and bother people. So leave them alone. And they're essentially just trying. There are these two handsome guys who no one would believe are samurai, and most people aren't talking to them. The shop they stop at, though, is being nice because they compliment the old lady who runs it and the two waitresses. Well, one's a waiter, but they don't realize that. And they end up getting dango, which apparently is a meal, contrary to what I believe. Dango is apparently a meal. Someone had to explain that to me. And they are served by someone different. We are talking about our main character, Chirinu Neo, who is a young man who works for this shop. And he and his little sister are being raised by the Obasan who runs the restaurant. And he has a unique just way about him that intrigues Okita and Hijikata, and they end up kind of interesting talking to him, and they're finding out information about the area, like the fact that there's currently a bunch of kidnappings that are happening, and it's kind of suspect and weird, but who knows what's going to happen. But they're good, nice tenants, so they're not going to be bothering anybody. A couple of things happen, and then people talk about the Miburo, how they're horrible and mean, and they're a bunch of sellouts, because some people are for the revolutionaries who, as we know, want to change things in Japan at this period of time. But I digress. So after a little bit of time, you have the Neo and his little sister leaving the shop one night because it's getting late, and a group of men try to accost them and kidnap them. And who's there to save the day? Well, it's Okita and Hijikata, who kind of used Neo and his sister as bait to find these guys. And what occurs is a moment of pure justice and amazement. It's violent, it's depraved, and it's kind of awesome. If you like old school samurai manga, this may be for you for this point. But they end up saving Neo and Ishoa, his younger sister, who's going to be sold to a family, yada, yada, yada. They save the day. It's all good. It's all great. And eventually Neo thanks them, but he wants to be a part of something greater. He wants to do something that's good and justice-ridden. So Hijikata ends up inviting Neo to join the Miburo, to become a swordsman and someone who has his own sense of justice and do what is needs to do. And that's what the story's about. The story of a young man becoming a member of the Miburo and all of the wonderfulness that happens in darkness and sadness, as we have someone who's an innocent child going into the world that is pretty corrupt. And this manga focuses on that. It focuses on the darker aspects of this because, yes, they are quote-unquote samurai, but some of them are ronins and some are not the nicest people. They do some very reprehensible things. One of the new members of the Miburo is a straight-up slave. He is a straight-up slave. He is owned by another member, and they treat him so horribly. It's kind of upsetting, but he ends up becoming a friend of Neo, and that's kind of one of the growing points of this manga. But then on the other hand, you have all the other crazy people who are part of the Miburo who do things. You have Hajime Saito, who is the left-handed samurai, who's one of the three big wolves, who are the three main leaders. You have Kamo Serazera, who is pretty much the judge of the Miburo. He slays them and purges his members. You have Kondo Isami, who is apparently the originator of the Miburo, but he's also a weird nut and maybe a drunk. There's a whole thing going on with him. It's kind of crazy. But this story goes into all those elements and gets there as we're following these characters. And to be honest, it does something a little different and also shows how good the samurai could be. For example, in the first story, you have that they don't kill one of the guys because he was hesitating to do bad things. It turns out that his daughter's been kidnapped and they are willing to let him go because he tells them where all the kids were kidnapped. because he was coerced into it. So they do have a very malleable sense of justice. It's not black and white. They're kind of gray in that area. And this is about these guys as they grow up and become members. And are they good? Are they bad? What does good and bad even mean? That's what this story is. It's what is the overall element of it. And there are some really great aspects to the story. It is a story of growing up. It is a story of that period, which is so full of turmoil. And like I said, it's a powder keg. Everything is happening at once. You have the revolutionaries starting to show up. You have all the political aspects. And this is all happening. And we have Neo, who has never done anything bad, never killed anybody, learning about this, having to deal with things like, okay, we are sacrificing this guy, so we're going to stab him a bunch of times, leave him in the street, make him look like he was robbing someone, leave him like that. Or let's make sure that, what do we do if we're chasing someone and they're going to attack a kid? Do we attack them or do we go and save the kid? What do we do? That's all the things that happen in this story. And there's some excellent elements to this. However, let's get into some of the cons about the story, because it is the setting is great. The art style is exceptional. If you've read Days or watched it, it looks amazing. However, here are some of the big things. One, Neo, while he is a interesting entry character, gets lost in the shuffle, because the total amount of Shinsengumi that we are introduced to is 23. 23 characters were introduced right off the bat after one chapter. And we have to remember who all of them are, and most of them are drawn kind of the same. It took a while for me to figure out who was Hijikata and who was Okita. It took me a while to figure out their names. You don't remember their names. You remember Neo, because Neo is very different looking. Everybody else is like, who's who? Like, here is a sketch of all of the characters in it. These are the members of the Shinsengumi. It's a lot. And it's hard to remember who's who, what's what, what's going on here, how did this happen. And it's hard for the timeline. It's kind of rough with that. Second thing is, while the art is okay, and like I said, there is there is some great artwork and great pieces, some of it doesn't stay well, and the story does meander a bit in certain elements. It does have a good pace overall, but as you're getting there are parts which drag. It drags. Like Volume 2 dragged. Some of the other storylines and some of the elements, it's not a aha moment. It's just kind of like we're getting there. It's going to be okay. It's going to be good. We're going to see what happens. But overall, there were some kind of, how do I put this politely? Some issues with it on that. And trying to think. I really am. It's just, I mean, on the one hand, you have it's a detailed and amazing story about the Shinsengumi, who they've written so much about. They've done so many stories on this group. And for those of us who don't know about the Shinsengumi, it's an interesting take on them. I mean, there's tons of stories about them. Like I've mentioned a couple. There was also that anime where it was like a bunch of convicts became the members of the Shinsengumi because the Shinsengumi all died. So it's like, oh, we're now renaming you this character because you look like them and you have weird powers. That really happened. So Shinsengumi are popular element in popular characters. So it's cool to see that. You have this amazing art style. But then, like I said, you have tons of supporting characters that just kind of fall through the cracks. And you don't know who's who, what's what, who this guy is. Some characters just show up for 5 minutes and they disappear. Other characters make huge impact, but then they disappear and you forget about them entirely. And like, wait, who was that guy again? Was it this guy? No. And then the character designs, you're like, yeah, is this maybe kind of, what? This series needs a little bit of upkeeping, and more importantly, it should have like here's this character's name underneath there whenever they show up, because you forget about it a lot. The other part is, like I said, Neo's an interesting character, but he's kind of forgettable as a protagonist goes. He is not the bee's knees. He's not the man. He's just kind of, But for that reason, I have to give this well, what am I going to rate this? Because great story, concept, great art design, rough with some of the pros and rough with that. Well, I gave this our middle of the ground rating, which is a gift from a crazy Aunt Muriel. Okay, but forgettable. It's got some great historical facts. It has detailed art styles, two main supporting characters, and the main character is rather forgettable. But that's what I gave it. Now, if you disagree with me or you have questions, you can email me personally at Zan, that's XAN, at Spiraken.com, or you can tweet me at Spiraken, whichever one you want to do. And let me know your thoughts. If you agree with me, disagree with me, if you think I did not understand this, let me know if you enjoyed it or not. Tell me your thoughts on this. And, well, let's actually get to the other part, which is the random question of the day, because we've got a really good one today. Our random question of the day is going to be, well, what's your favorite reinterpretation of the Shinsengumi story? Is it you just a fan of Kenshin? Are you someone who's a fan of some of the more unique retellings, like I said, like the one where it's the convicts become the Shinsengumi? Or apparently there's a Tokusatsu one where they're Tokusatsu heroes. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Let me know. Email me, zansparker.com, or comment in the show notes down below. And with that in mind, let's actually get to it, because this is the second week of January. I've compiled the last 2 weeks, or actually last week's and this week's, for the manga releases of the last 2 weeks. So let's get to it, shall we? Because I always talk about the manga releases. So, the big manga releases for this week. First off, we've got 365 Days to the Wedding, Volume 6. This one is a personal favorite of mine, and it's a great series. The anime first season just dropped, and I like where they ended it, but I hope it does get a second season. Next, we had Aphoreta, From Commonplace to World's Strongest, Volume 13. This is the last volume of the light novel, and I've got to say, it has been a crazy ride for this series. Then we have Ballad of Sword and Wine, Kyanji Jin, Volume 3. Black Clover, Volume 36. Blood Night Market, Volume 1. Box of Light, Volume 3. Chainsaw Man, Volume 17. Cinderella Closet, Volume 8. Dance in the Vampire Bund, Age of Scarlet Order, Volume 13. Dark Gathering, Volume 11. Drugstore in Another World, Volume 7. The Duke of Death and His Maid, Volume 16. Dungeon Builders, The Demon King's Labyrinth is a Modern City, Volume 10. The Hidden Dungeon Only I Can Enter, Volume 12. I Get That Feeling That Nobukuni-san Likes Me, Volume 5. The Itadan Deities Know Only Peace, Volume 7. Amna Succubus, Volume 6. I'm the Heroic Knight of an Intergalactic Empire, Volume 2, and this is a spin-off of I'm the Evil Overlord of an Intergalactic Empire, so it's kind of cool with that. Isekai Affair, Volume 1, which this series seems really crazy. Kuma 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 Bear, Volume 20. This is the novel series. Last Quarter, Volume 2. Like a Butterfly, Volume 10. This is the series by the creator of Sign of Attraction, Sign of Affection, so definitely worth checking out. Love by Two Fiancés, Volume 1. Malevolent Spirits Monogatari, Volume 9. Marriage Toxin, Volume 5. Moriarty the Patriot, Volume 18. My Dear Friend Nokotan, Volume 5. My Girlfriend's Not Here Today, Volume 3. This one's definitely not inappropriate. My Sister Took My Fiancé and Now I'm Being Courted by a Beastly Prince, the manga, Volume 1. Otaku Vampire's Love Bite. Revenge, Mrs. Wrong, Volume 4. Ruri Dragon, Volume 1. Sakamoto Days, Volume 15. She Professed Herself Pupil of the Wise Man, Volume 12. She's the Strongest Bride, but I'm Stronger in the Night Battles. Harem Chronicle of Advancing Through Charming Tactics, Volume 2. Skeleton Knight in Another World, Volume 13. This is the manga series. The Strange Adventure of a Broke Mercenary, Volume 9 of the novel. A Tale of the Secret Saint, Volume 1 of the novel. Taman's B-Side, Volume 6. Tokyo Revengers, Volume 27 to 28. Trapped in a Dating Sim, The World of Otome Games is Tough for Mobs, novel number 13. Again, connected to the Omnivo Overworld universe. Wanna Be My Dress-Up Lover, Volume... I believe this is just a standalone, because that's it. Then we have Wolf Girl and Black Print, Volume 11. World's End Harem, Volume 18. This is the Afterworld series. So this is the sequel, spin-off, or finale. And then last and not least, we have You Like Me, Not My Daughter, Volume 5. So these are the manga releases for the last 2 weeks, and I've got to say we've got tons of unique ones, tons of stuff, because a lot did come out in the last several months. I'm not going to go over all of them. I'm not going to go over all of the Trigun Maximums, all of the unique Junji Ito stuff that came out, or some of the more compelling series, because we had a lot. But these are the ones that were released. And more importantly than that, let's get to my top 5 of the week. So what do we got? We're talking about 365 Days to the Wedding, Volume 6, Blood Night Market, Volume 1, Isekai Affair, Volume 1, Love by Two Fiancés, Volume 1, and Ruri Dragon, Volume 1. These are the ones that I think are the most unique and impactful for the week. We've got a lot going on, and yes, I could talk about Chainsaw Man and Sakamoto Days, but those ones, they're starting to spin their wheels a little bit, and these ones are still great. In 365, this is a very pivotal point because this is officially when things get spicy. But those are the series that we're talking about. Let us know the ones you like. Email me, zansparkin.com, or tweet me Sparkins, the ones you're most excited about, or the ones that you think are not worth even checking out. Let me know your thoughts on those. Now, more importantly, before we go any further, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for sticking around so long. I know it's been a little bit of time, but every email I get, every comment I get, the fact that I was able to rally and get tons of people to join me for the podcast, I appreciate each and every one of you. And it gives me just more confidence to keep doing this because I love doing this. So we're going to see where it goes. Next week, definitely check out my video on the GoFundMe drive. You'll see the links, and whatever happens, even if you tell a friend about it, I would appreciate it greatly because, I do the best I can for this, and I love doing this. And I want to keep going until I'm an old man who has to read manga with thick glasses and a magnifying glass. So thank you very much for sticking around, and I love doing this. And even regardless, keep watching the show. Like I said, I love talking about manga. I love talking about different TV shows. And we're going to be releasing a bunch of new stuff for 2024. We're going to be doing some TV stuff, some book stuff, and more importantly than that, a couple of fun, let's leave that for anyone who actually is interested in hearing me talk about manga in a very different way. But with that in mind, let's get to the part that you've all been waiting for, the most popular part of this podcast. And what are we talking about? We are talking about that one, that only, the Wheel of Manga! Yes, friends, the Wheel of Manga, except no substitute. Now, what is the Wheel of Manga? The Wheel of Manga is a Wheel of Fortune with 10 slots on it. What I've done is I've assigned a manga title to each of the 10 slots. So what we're going to do is we're going to spin the wheel. Whatever number it lands on, the manga that's in that spot is what I'm going to review in the next episode of the Spiraken Manga Review, episode 574. It's been crazy, but we've got some great ones on here, so let's spin see what we're going to review in the next episode, shall we? And I updated it with some new stuff that I picked up over the last couple of weeks and some I got for Christmas that I have not read yet. But I'm excited to see what we're going to get. So let's see what we're going to review. And number 3, Fridays at the Atelier. What is this manga about? I am not sure, but it is wrapped in plastic. So we're going to see. Could be something naughty or it could be something very, it could be something just violent. We're going to see. But thank you so much for listening to this podcast. You are all awesome. And as usual, and as always, I'm your host, Zan. I'm Gonzville. Catch you guys next time, and keep reading manga. I will see you later.